welcome to the CrafteeManatee. During the month of October, I'm going to be posting a video every Monday showing you how to crochet Scrump from Lilo and Stitch. This is a crochet along event and I'm hosting a discussion over on Rippler where we are all going to be crocheting this scrump together. So I will link that discussion over on Rippler in the description below so you can come and join the community of everybody crocheting scrump this month. Each of the 4 videos is going to show you a different part of how to crochet scrump, and it will all be worked in chronological order so you can work along with me to create your own scrump from Lilo and Stitch. Today is part 3 of the scrump crochet along, and today we are going to be adding on the bow and the collar or the necklace of scrump. Before we get started, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more crochet patterns and tutorials, and share this video with a friend who you think would enjoy learning how to crochet scrump as well. Here are the materials that you're going to need to crochet scrump. I used a chunky weight yarn, but you can use whatever yarn you want. The amount of yarn will just vary based off of what kind of yarn you decide to use. So I used about 100 grams of chunky weight yarn in green. Then I used about 40 grams of chunky weight yarn in pink. We'll also need about 20 grams of chunky weight yarn in yellow, about 2 grams of chunky weight yarn in black, and about 10 grams of chunky weight yarn in blue. We're also going to need stuffing to stuff our scrump along the way, and I'm going to be using a 5mm crochet hook for the letter H. And finally, we will need scissors and a tapestry needle to tuck in yarn tails. We're going to get started today by working on the main part of the bow. So this is the main part of the bow that is going to sit on top of Scrump's head. It's the largest part, and we're going to get started by chaining 54 stitches. So we are going to chain 54, and I will meet you back here once we finish that chain for our next step. Now that we have finished that chain, we are going to slip stitch to the first chain that we made to create a loop. Now you want to make sure that your chain is not twisted and that it is laying flat, because it is very easy to get this chain twisted and then you are going to end up with a twisted row instead of flat rows. So I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch to the first chain here. Make a slip stitch to join it. Now the rest of the bow is worked in rounds. So we are simply going to work 10 rounds of single crocheting in every stitch around. So go ahead and work 10 rounds of single crocheting, 54 in each round, and I will meet you back here for our next steps. Now that we have finished all of those rounds, we can go ahead and fasten off our yarn, and there's no need to leave a long yarn tail for this one because we won't be sewing the bow on using either of these yarn tails. So we can go ahead and set this aside and tuck in these yarn tails, and then we can move on to creating the center of the bow that's going to squish this together to make it look like a bow. For the center of the bow, we are going to go ahead and chain 11. And then we are going to single crochet in every stitch along this chain, starting in the second chain from our hook. So we're going to be single crocheting 10 stitches along this foundation chain. So I will meet you back here once we're done with this first row. Now we're going to chain 1 and turn our work, and we are going to single crochet in every stitch across for 10 stitches. And we're going to repeat that for the next 4 rows. So go ahead and work 4 rows where we chain 1 and turn our work and single crochet 10. And I'll meet you back here for our next row. Now that we have finished all of those rows, we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. And for this row, we are going to be creating an opening in the middle that will later be used to insert the hair into. And that will make sense later, but basically this is going to be positioned at the top of Scrump's head, and it's going to allow us to be able to hide the hair tops in here. So it'll make sense later, but we're going to go ahead and single crochet 2. And now we are going to chain 6. And then we are going to skip 6 stitches. And in the last 2 stitches, we will work 2 single crochet stitches. So as you can see, that has created this opening. And now we are going to chain 1 and turn our work, and we are going to work 5 rows of single crocheting 10. So go ahead and chain 1, turn your work, single crochet 10, and do that for 5 rounds, and I will meet you back here once we're done. So here's what the center of the bow is looking like right now, and we are done crocheting the rows, but we're not going to fasten off our yarn just yet. Instead, we are going to grab the main part of our bow. So we're going to go ahead and wrap the center of the bow around the main part of the bow. So our goal here is to wrap this centerpiece around the bow so that it squishes down like this, and either side pops up and it looks like a bow. But we want to make sure that the opening that we made during row 6 is positioned at the top of our bow. So we want to make sure that it's lined up top here. So with the opening in the center of the bow lined up top here, we are going to squish all of the bow down into the center. And it can be kind of challenging to hold all of this at once, but you're just going to squish all of that down and then kind of rotate it like this. And our goal is to single crochet the first row of our bow center to the last row. So we are just squishing all of this up, and we want this center to wrap all the way around, and then we're going to attach the 2 sides together. So once we have it all squished up, and we can kind of adjust this in the later step to make it look a little bit prettier, but right now we are just making sure that it is secure. So we're going to insert our hook through one side of our bow center, making sure not to grab any of the rows of the main part of the bow. And we're going to insert it through the other half and single crochet those together. And we're going to do that all the way along so that it really holds it together in place. And I will meet you back here after we have finished single crocheting those 2 sides together. Once we have finished single crocheting those 2 sides together, we can fasten off our yarn, and at this point we do want to leave a long yarn tail for sewing, because this is what we're going to use to sew the bow onto the top of Scrump's head. So we can pull this through, and then I'll show you what our bow is looking like. So at this point, we can go ahead and kind of fluff up either side of the bow here, and we can continue to adjust this as we sew it to the top of Scrump's head also. But you can see that the center is going to be able to slide because it's not actually attached to the bow itself, it's just wrapped around and holding it in place. So you can kind of adjust it. You want to make sure that that center is in the center of the bow, and you want to make sure that the opening is at the top of the bow. So In our next video, we're going to work on Scrump's hair, but you can see now that this is where we're going to insert it. So it's going to let us insert through the center and all of the bow itself, and it will hold it all in place. So now we can go ahead and set aside our bow. I'm going to tuck in this starting yarn tail, but leave this long yarn tail for sewing untucked in. And we'll move on to crocheting the collar. To crochet Scrump's collar, or I guess it is a necklace around his neck, we are going to chain 18. So we'll go ahead and just make 18 chains, and I will meet you back here once we have finished that. And now we are going to single crochet in every stitch, starting from the second chain from our hook. So we are going to be single crocheting 17 stitches along this starting chain, and I will meet you back here once we have that finished. And now we are going to chain 1 and turn our work, and this is the final row of the collar, and we are simply going to single crochet in every stitch across. So go ahead and single crochet 17, and I will meet you back here when you're done with that. And now we can go ahead and fasten off the yarn, and we're going to leave a long yarn tail for sewing again. Now I'm going to go ahead and tuck in the starting yarn tail, and then we can move on to sewing the collar onto Scrump and the bow on top of his head. Now we're going to go ahead and sew everything that we have crocheted today onto our main Scrump's body. So this is what we've completed in the last 2 videos, and now it's time to add on the collar and the bow. To add on the collar, we are simply going to wrap it around Scrump's neck here. So this is going to be where his head connects to his body, right around the narrowest part. And we're going to flip it around so the seam is in the back. And we're going to just sew it on like this. So we're going to sew that together, those 2 sides, to secure it. And then we're going to secure it further by sewing it to the body. So you could just leave it like this, but I like to make sure that it is nice and secure. So we're going to insert our needle and make sure that it goes through a part of Scrump's actual body, so the green yarn here. So we want to go deep enough that it goes through all of those layers, and then just pop out that needle in another spot. And I'm going to just continue doing this all the way around. I'm probably going to go around a few times just to make sure that this is nice and secure. And then we'll move on to attaching the bow. Now we're going to sew the bow onto the top of Scrump's head. And we're simply going to line up the bow right on the center, so you can kind of look at the starting magic ring that we made. We have like a perfect center of Scrump's head here. We're just going to line it up in line with that, and then make sure it is centered left to right and attach it on to the head. So I'm going to just insert my needle right about there, and I'm just going to loop it around. So I'm going to insert kind of from the front back and then loop it through the back. Just kind of keep going back and forth like that. And you want to make sure that we are sewing the row that we single crocheted together down here, and that does create a little bit of a lip here, a little bit of a ledge that we can use to sew on to the head. And again, we want to make sure that that opening is left open at the top, because that is where we'll be inserting the hair to hide it into the bow. So I'm going to just continue looping this around just like that. And we want to make sure it's very secure, but we also do kind of want it to still be floppy, because Scrump is kind of like a rag doll and his head's going to be kind of slumpy, and so is his bow. So we're just going to continue doing that, and I will meet you back here once it's secure. Here's what the bow will look like once it is sewn on, and it is secure to the top of the head, but it's not really secure from side to side yet, and that is going to get more secure once we add in the hair, because we're going to add the hair into the pocket and then sew through all of the layers. So this top part of the bow will get more secure in the next video, so don't worry about that if it is still moving side to side. And here is our progress after part 3 of our series here. Adding on the bow and the collar really start to make Scrump look like Scrump. It definitely adds on a lot of character. So we're going to add on the hair and the arms in the next video, and that will be our final video of our Scrump crochet along. I hope you've enjoyed this series so far, and especially today's video of adding on the bow. If you did, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more crochet patterns and tutorials. Thanks for watching. Bye.